Welcome to Work World Writing. Recently, I've been trying to capture in one concept what education, teaching, and learning means and how that impacts course development. And I've thrown around words like workshop-style classrooms and flipped classrooms, hybrid classrooms, blended this, and I think I've come up with a concept that's easy to work with, easy to understand for sure. It's fun to use, and even if I take a break and come back and review the concept as time passes, it continues to work. And so I want to share it with you today. It's all about zombie apocalypse. It sounds funny, but it actually does work really, really well for teaching and learning. So I want to talk about curriculum management, course delivery, and assessment through the zombie apocalypse. So let's start by talking about curriculum management. In the zombie apocalypse, there's one overriding question that we need to ask ourselves. What is essential for the survival of the human race? What's great about it is I can ask that exact same question of my own curriculum. What is essential for the survival of the human race in regards to this curriculum? And that's what I need to do. I need to figure out what is absolutely essential, and that's a thing I'm going to address first, and if I have time later, I'm going to address the other things. And I understand that we have governments to answer to and Red Seal programs and this kind of designation, but we have no choice. It's a zombie apocalypse. We have to help our students survive in the real world, so I'm going to teach them what's essential. That's how I approach curriculum management. All right, let's move on to course delivery. Same idea. We're going to start with a question here. How can I ensure that every human gets the best survival skills? I know what I'm going to teach. I've narrowed that down, but how do I ensure that they have the best survival skills in my subject around these topics? So we're going to look at two things really quickly. Number one, I need an attitude for myself as a teacher. I need to take my students as they are and make them as good as I can. Next is a little more difficult. I need to make sure that every single human is learning. In the zombie apocalypse, if you do not learn, you do not survive. And so it's going to be the same thing in my class. It would be unethical for me to teach you something that you already know. It's like I need to teach you things that you don't know. I need to make sure you're learning things that are new. And we're actually going to look at that more closely because that is so key, making sure every student is learning. And so we're going to address this in 3 steps. I want to make sure I see continuous improvement at essential tasks via a mutual feedback system. That's how I can make sure every single human is learning. I see continuous improvement at essential tasks, and I need to do that by talking and communicating with students. So I'm going to break this down. I'm going to actually start first with these essential tasks, and we're going to break that down a little bit. So essential tasks, I want to start my students off by doing something that is essential. Take my curriculum. I think about how it's applied in the real world. I'm going to think about what people do in the real world, an activity or a project or an experiment that they do in the real world, and I'm going to bring it back to my classroom, and I'm going to have my students start by doing that activity. I hope that activity is going to be able to touch on multiple curriculum strands, multiple areas of my curriculum. Again, that's going to help me with my whole I don't have enough time to cover everything problem. And so, for example, if I'm going to do math class, for example, I might have a budget based around an allowance that a student might have or a business that they're looking into. And solving that budget problem is going to touch on numbers and patterns, maybe, and probability. So again, multiple strands of the curriculum. Maybe I'll study Mars like they do in the real world, and that's going to cover multiple areas of my curriculum: optics, solar system, water, geology. For writing, I'm going to write for a newspaper, and again, it touches on multiple areas. My 6 traits of writing, for example. And what I would do is take your final projects that you already have created for your class, start with those, bring them right up to the front and get them started on those final products to start with. Same thing with a final exam. A lot of times there's concepts on there that are overarching concepts. Start with those instead. And now I realize that right away, students are going to get stuck. And that's what we're going to talk about next, is this continuous improvement. So as soon as my student gets stuck, I want them to obviously get unstuck so that they can make this continuous improvement. Naturally, I'm going to have to get this feedback system going right away in here, but we'll talk about the feedback system in a minute. So my students have started a task. They get stuck. They need more information. Some people call it more theory, whatever you want to call it. I need to address what they don't know, and that's going to help me ensure that they make this continuous improvement. So in order to do this, I probably need to have some supports in place or build them as I go and make sure that those supports are always available. Okay, so my students are active, some of them are getting stuck. I need to point them towards more information, and it'd be really nice if they were set up already on a class website or a blog. Maybe I've got a video for them to watch, or an article, or an activity, or maybe I have this little teaching moment that I have, and I know that they're going to need it, and I'm just ready to give it to them. Maybe just a couple of slides from my PowerPoint that they need. That's really empowering for students. Instead of going through all 20 of those slides, oh, you just need this one or this one, and make those slides available for them. And if you don't have those in place already, just build them with the students. You go find those articles and those videos and find the slides that they need and the information that they need and the links to websites, and put that on the class website or the blog. Make it available to them at all times. And what we need to realize is that some of our students won't need those supports at all, that they're fine just working through and doing that task, and they don't need any of that extra support. So really what I'm trying to do here is get each student to become as good as I am. They're not all going to measure up. Some of them aren't even going to get close. But the goal is there, and it's a great goal that as they're working towards these essential tasks, and yes, we are addressing what they don't know, and not everybody's going to learn it as deep and as well, but it's a worthy goal in the zombie apocalypse, is to just keep pushing them towards getting to become a master like I am. And here's where motivation is all taken care of, because every single learner is moving in that positive direction. There's motivation there, because they're learning things that they don't know. So I kind of have this summarized in a goal here. Each human learns as much, as fast, and as deep as possible. And that's the goal that I want to address now here as we move into the feedback system. All right, so this mutual feedback system, we've got one overarching concept here. Feedback must replace marking and grading. In the zombie apocalypse, there really is no room. We don't have time to wait until the end of a unit to give back some kind of results. Instead, I'm going to have my low stakes or even no stakes activities, and I'm going to be giving constant feedback in order to improve. And this really needs to replace my dependency. As a teacher, I'm always thinking, oh, I got to mark this, I got to grade this. So for example, let's say in my classroom, I'm building a model with the students, or they're building a model or experiment or an article or solving a problem or presenting something. Right away, again, this is low stakes or no stakes, I'm going to start having conversations, one-on-one conversations with my students. I'm going to start asking, show me how you're doing that, explain this, how did you do that, try this, maybe are you stuck? And immediately I'm finding out if there's gaps in knowledge, and I can now start pointing them towards those supports that I have in place, or I can start building supports with them right on the spot. Okay, then I can step it up a notch. Let's say I've got my models, or I'm doing my experiment, and I'm going to actually start giving them feedback all along the way. Sometimes what I'll do is I'll say, okay, for the next 4 days, we're going to work on our experiment, and I'm constantly getting them to show me what they're doing and figure out if they don't know something, but I'm giving them feedback like, hey, this is really good, this is what's working well, here's how to make it better, here's how to make it better, and eventually they've kind of hopefully got up to that mastery level where they're up where, hey, that's as good as what I would do, and it may take them 1 day or 2 days to get there. It doesn't matter, everybody's kind of working at their own pace, but that's the whole goal, and I'm just constantly giving them that feedback all along the way to get it to that mastery level. And I would use that for sure if I was grading with the 3 Ps. Then later on we can start to add that information to my 3P model. If you don't know what I'm talking about with the 3 Ps, there's a link below. There's a video about 3 Ps. Now, some of you are forced to grade these activities or these tasks. So you would take your model or your experiment and you're forced to apply a grade for that. Well, then you're going to give feedback and a grade all along the way. So here's how to make it better, and right now it's sitting at a C. And here's how to make it better, and right now it's sitting at a B. And the goal is the same thing, hopefully by the end that everybody's at an A, and then we can all record a grade of A on that article that we were writing or the problem solving that we were doing. Another one that I will do is same idea, doesn't matter what kind of task I have them doing, I will get the student to grade themselves first and at any time. And I want the student to always be able to grade themselves. So usually what I do here is I use a continuum of exemplars, and you can click right there on continuum of exemplars. There's another video about them there. But really it's just an explanation or a demonstration, or somehow students are able to see the finished product of the article or the experiment or the model, and they can start to compare their work against what you've provided for them. It's not a rubric. It's actually an example of the finished product. And usually I set it up in stages so that they can measure themselves at any time. And really, again, if you have to grade for these things, they can grade themselves at any time. So there you have it, folks. Zombie apocalypse. What is essential for survival in the human race? That's how I'm going to approach my curriculum. As far as delivery, I'm going to make sure every human is doing. I'm going to start my students actually physically doing something and then supplement that theory or that information just when they need it. And I'm going to make sure that I have a feedback system so that I can ensure that that learning is always happening. Thanks for listening. More to come.